Trump is making headlines again, and not in a good way. His latest disaster relief response has people outraged, and Jimmy Kimmel isn't holding back. The late-night host just unleashed a brutal takedown, and social media is exploding. So what did Trump do this time to spark such a backlash? Let's break down the controversy that has everyone talking. Donald Trump has always painted himself as the ultimate leader in disaster relief, but his latest moves are causing a firestorm, both literally and politically. Instead of stepping in to help, he's laying down conditions, making bold demands, and using relief funds as leverage. And of course, late-night host Jimmy Kimmel is having a field day tearing into him. Let's break it down. First, Trump loves to boast about being the best at disaster response.
The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end.
Something to be done about a lot of different things going on in the country. I mean, our country is in a free fall, and these are good American people. These are great American people. So, sometimes severe, sometimes not so severe, but what they do want, what's good for the country.
A lot of people, they pardoned, before we even get to today, they pardoned, 33 murderers, absolute murderers.
But you see, I'm a believer in the Tea Party because what they want is what's really right for this country. They want something to be done about this horrendous
platform is immigrants are dangerous. Immigrants are killing our country. We have to stop the immigrants. I guess this election wasn't rigged. That's weird though, right? I mean, he said it would be rigged. He said it was being rigged while people were in line voting. It was as if they caught her in a glue trap at Saks Fifth Avenue and dragged her there.
Donald Trump, in this case specifically legal counsel, there's an expectation that you are also protecting somebody else. I ended up moving down to Atlanta for several months.
They didn't even think it was safe for you to stay in D.C.
No, I would not vote for Donald Trump in 2024. But I also do not want to sit here and catastrophize a scenario where he is actually the Republican nominee. Days after my testimony, there's the immediate security protocols and security concerns. Ultimately turned to Trump World, and I was very candid with Trump World about my situation, and I was desperate. Yes, I was given counsel. So my life changed in the way that I was living my life for a while.
You couldn't go back to your apartment.
I could not go back to my apartment.
40 years later, that I would stand before you as the longest-serving Senate leader in American history.
Fact remains, no individual has done more damage to the Senate than Mitch McConnell. No single individual has inflicted more harm.
I have the honor of representing Kentucky in the Senate longer than anyone else in our state's history. I'm filled with heartfelt gratitude and humility for the opportunity.
Say Donald Trump, if he is reelected, it will be the end of the republic. What do you mean?
He's told us what he will do.
For his dedication to the cause of freedom, Boris Nemtsov was assassinated by Vladimir Putin's thugs.
It's very easy to see the steps that he will take. People who say, well, if he's elected, it's not that dangerous, but
tell me that her greatest fear was that people would forget. They would forget what it was like to live under Soviet domination.
See, happening today is a sort of a sleepwalking into a dictatorship in the United States.
And a dissident who spent years in the Soviet gulag have all told me it was the miracle of America.
Better than anyone, according to him, but now he's taken things to another level by threatening to withhold aid unless states like California play by his rules. In a recent rally, he made it clear that federal relief might come with strings attached, like changing water policies or, who knows, maybe even renaming a burger in his honor. And Trump isn't alone in this strategy. Ohio Representative Warren Davidson and Wyoming Senator John Barrasso have echoed similar sentiments, pushing for conditions before disaster aid is granted. Their argument? If states want help, they need to comply with political demands, because apparently nothing says caring about American lives like turning disaster relief into a political weapon. But the real controversy? Experts warn that using aid as a bargaining chip isn't just unethical, it could set a dangerous precedent, leading to unnecessary delays and putting countless lives at risk. Yet Trump and his allies seem more focused on control than compassion. So, as homes burn and communities struggle, the question remains, is this disaster relief or just another political power play? We all know Mitch McConnell, the man who rarely shows emotion, looking like he's permanently attending a turtle's funeral. But behind the scenes, he's been roasting Donald Trump harder than the Florida sun beating down on a Mar-a-Lago golf cart. And while you might assume these two are on the same team, think again. Behind closed doors, Mitch has been calling Trump out in ways that would make even his most loyal supporters do a double take. He's been caught saying that no one has done more damage to the Senate than Trump, harsh words from a man who's spent decades mastering the art of political maneuvering. But it gets even juicier, because this isn't just about policy differences. It's personal. Let's rewind to just after the 2020 election. Mitch McConnell, feeling emboldened, decided to take a public jab at Trump, suggesting that the American people had seen enough of his chaos and misleading rhetoric. Translation, you lost, move on. That alone would be enough to make Trump fume, but McConnell didn't stop there. He went on to call out Trump's non-stop stream of misinformation, essentially labeling him as a walking, talking generator of political nonsense. And remember when Trump dragged his feet on approving the coronavirus relief package? Mitch wasn't pleased. Even he, who has built a career out of playing political chess, found it unacceptable that Trump was delaying financial relief for struggling Americans just to make a statement. It was one of the few moments where McConnell actually pushed back on Trump's tactics, making it clear that even he had his limits. But the real bombshell came after January 6. Mitch McConnell stood before the Senate and declared that Trump was practically and morally responsible for provoking the attack on the Capitol. For a man who rarely speaks in absolutes, this was as close as it gets to a full-blown condemnation. It was a moment that should have ended any illusion of unity between the two. And yet, here's where the political circus takes its wildest turn. Despite all of this, Mitch still went on to endorse Trump's 2024 presidential campaign. That's right. After calling him unfit, reckless, and a liar, McConnell pulled a move so contradictory it could give whiplash. His reasoning? That others in Trump's circle have said worse. That's like saying, sure, I crashed the car, but at least I didn't drive it off a cliff. But just when you think American politics can't get any stranger, another unlikely pairing emerges, one that has left both sides of the aisle scratching their heads. Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris, two figures who seem to have nothing in common, suddenly find themselves in the same conversation. And trust me, this twist is one you won't see coming. Liz Cheney, the daughter of none other than Dick Cheney, often referred to as the Darth Vader of American politics, has officially gone rogue. And in one of the most unexpected alliances in modern political history, she's found herself teaming up with Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris. It's like a political version of Freaky Friday, except instead of swapping bodies, they're swapping party lines to defend the Constitution. But make no mistake, this isn't just some feel-good moment of bipartisan unity over brunch. Cheney and Harris are on a mission, and they're not holding back. Picture this, the two of them standing side by side, like an unlikely duo in a high-stakes political thriller. If this were a Hollywood movie, it'd be titled Bad Girls for Democracy, coming soon to a nation near you. Cheney, never one to shy away from confrontation, made her stance crystal clear. At a recent event, she didn't just criticize Trump, she eviscerated him. We may disagree on some things, but we are bound together by one thing that matters more than anything else: our duty to the Constitution and our belief in the miracle and blessing of this incredible nation. That's political speak for, I don't care who I have to team up with, saving democracy comes first. She didn't stop there. In a direct rebuke of Trump, she laid it out in the simplest terms. He refused to accept the will of the people and the results of an election that was free and fair. If given the chance, he would violate the Constitution again. That's not just criticism, that's an outright warning. And for someone who once carried the banner of the GOP establishment, it's a blistering indictment of her own party's former leader. But here's where things get really interesting. Cheney isn't the only Republican breaking ranks. A growing number of GOP defectors are hopping on the anti-Trump train, turning what was once a fringe rebellion into a full-blown movement. It's like a political remake of The Breakfast Club, except instead of serving detention, they're trying to prevent democracy from collapsing. And it's not just politicians, even former Trump insiders are jumping ship. Take Cassidy Hutchinson, once a loyal aide in the Trump White House, who later became a key witness in the January 6th hearings. Now she's fully aligned with the Cheney-Harris coalition. Watching former Trump allies distance themselves from him is like watching rats flee a sinking ship, except in this case, the ship is orange and keeps insisting it's actually a luxury yacht. This alliance between Cheney and Harris is so unexpected, it's leaving both parties stunned. It's the political equivalent of seeing a unicorn ride a dinosaur. So rare, so unbelievable, yet somehow here we are. The moment has become so surreal that even hardened politicians are doing double takes. It's as if they're forming their own version of the Avengers, except instead of fighting Thanos, they're trying to stop democracy from turning into a bad reality TV show. Meanwhile, the Republican Party itself is experiencing an identity crisis bigger than Trump's ego, and that's saying something. It's like they're throwing a political pizza party, but no one can agree on the toppings. You have the Trump loyalists who'd put pineapple on anything if he told them to, the never-Trumpers who'd rather eat cardboard than support him, and then the confused moderates in the middle, wondering if they should just order a salad and avoid the chaos altogether. But this isn't just an internal squabble, it's an all-out political civil war. And if you want to see the battlefield, just open Twitter. One side is filled with hardline Trump supporters, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who would probably volunteer as his personal human shield if he asked nicely. On the other side, Liz Cheney is leading a full-scale rebellion, filled with more plot twists than a primetime soap opera. And then there are the flip-floppers, the Republicans who can't decide which way the wind is blowing. One day they're wagging their fingers at Trump, condemning his actions, the next they're groveling for his endorsement. It's like watching a game of political hot potato, except the potato is orange, has a bad comb-overs, and is still convinced he won an election he lost. With the 2024 election looming, this internal war within the GOP isn't just a side story, it's shaping up to be the main event. Will Cheney's rebellion hold strong, or will Trump's influence continue to dominate the party? Either way, one thing is clear. American politics has never been more unpredictable. The late-night comedy battleground is heating up, and Jimmy Kimmel isn't just tossing lighthearted jabs, he's delivering full-scale comedic assaults. Trump, no stranger to media criticism, has found himself at the center of Kimmel's latest round of brutal takedowns, with each punchline cutting deeper than the last. And the former president, whose skin is reportedly thinner than a gas station napkin, isn't exactly known for handling criticism with grace. But this isn't just about late-night laughs. Kimmel's roasting underscores a deeper frustration many have with Trump's handling of serious national issues. The former president's approach to disaster relief, often seen as transactional rather than humanitarian, has become a glaring example of what critics describe as his self-serving leadership style. Whether it's throwing paper towels in Puerto Rico or turning federal aid into a political bargaining chip, Trump's actions have made him an easy target for satirists like Kimmel. And in a media landscape where late-night hosts wield considerable influence, these comedic monologues are more than just jokes. They're shaping public opinion. Meanwhile, Trump's allies are scrambling to defend him, launching their own counterattacks on social media and conservative news outlets. It's become a familiar cycle. Trump faces criticism, his supporters rush to his defense, and the resulting chaos dominates the headlines. But even within the Republican Party, cracks are starting to show. Some members, particularly those eyeing their own political futures, are growing weary of constantly having to clean up Trump's messes. They see the damage his antics are doing to the GOP brand and are quietly wondering whether it's time to move on. But of course, moving on from Trump is easier said than done. His influence over the party remains overwhelming and his base remains fiercely loyal. For many Republicans, the choice is clear. Stick with Trump and risk alienating moderates, or break away and face the wrath of MAGA loyalists. It's a political minefield, and so far, few have successfully navigated it. As the 2024 election cycle looms, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will the GOP continue to rally behind Trump, or will figures like Liz Cheney and her unlikely Democratic allies manage to shift the party in a new direction? The battle for the soul of the Republican Party is far from over, and as the drama unfolds, one thing is certain. Late-night hosts like Kimmel will have plenty of material to work with. But let's cut through the comedy for a second, because this issue isn't funny for the people suffering. Disaster relief isn't a game, and yet here we are, watching it be treated as a political chess piece. The organizations on the ground don't care about partisan drama, they care about delivering aid to those who desperately need it. When hurricanes, wildfires, and floods strike, nature doesn't check your voting record before wiping out your home. The reality is harsh, and the stakes are too high for leaders to be playing political games with people's lives. So where does that leave us? Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or just an exhausted citizen trying to keep up with the madness, one thing is undeniable. This disaster relief fiasco is a disgrace. It's a reminder of how broken the system has become when human suffering is leveraged for political gain. Enough with the partisan grandstanding, enough with the performative outrage. It's time for leaders to do their actual job, protect and serve the people they were elected to represent, because when disaster strikes, Americans don't need political theatrics. They need real action. So what can you do? Stay informed, hold leaders accountable, and demand real solutions. If you're tired of the political circus, make your voice heard. Whether it's through voting, activism, or supporting organizations that prioritize real aid over political games. The only way to change this broken system is to call it out and refuse to accept business as usual. The question is, will we?